all the kings have ownership to all of each and everything. Indeed, I am your slave, created from the dust, a traveler in this world. I shouldn't feel such loss. La ilaha, la ilaha, la ilaha illallah.
In the name of Allah, the All-Merciful, the Ever-Merciful. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah. And blessings and peace be upon Muhammad alayhi as-salatu wassalam. Dear viewers, brothers and sisters, in your program, in its previous episode, we dealt with some terms related to an-nikah or to marriage in Islam. At the end of the episode, I promised you to continue dealing with some of these terms. Actually, we have only 2 terms left. These are ways of ending the marriage. In the previous episode, we have already dealt with at-talaq, divorce, and we have dealt with al-khul'. The divorce is the decision of the husband alone, and al-khul' is the decision of the woman alone on condition that she returns the mahr or sadaq which she received from her husband. We have other ways of ending the marriage or the marital relation or the marriage contract, and this is actually, there is one way left, which is al-li'an. We also touched upon what we call al-dhihar. Al-dhihar is for a man to say to his wife, you are like my mother, meaning that he will not have intimate relationship with her. And we said that this doesn't end the marriage permanently, because if he pays an expiation, then he can get the woman as his wife once again. Another way of ending the marriage is what we call al-li'an, and there is a very important term dealing with marriage or a consequence of ending the marriage, which is called al-iddah. After we finish doing this, we'll move to another subject matter, to discussing some fiqh. Fiqh is usually translated into jurisprudence. Some fiqhi, the adjective from fiqh, some jurisprudential terms. Before we do this, let's go back to the screen and go back to the 2 remaining terms related to marriage. Li'an, it's a way of ending the marriage. It is an oath which is taken by both the wife and the husband when the husband accuses his wife of committing illegal sexual intercourse but without evidence, in which case both are required to make an oath several times, actually 5 times. Then if a man accuses his wife of an illicit relationship with another man, but he doesn't have any tangible or any concrete evidence, then we have a case of li'an here. He says to her, or he makes an oath that she committed the sin, and if she didn't, then the curse of Allah will be on him, and she makes a similar statement 5 times. If this happens 5 times, then the marriage contract is no longer valid, it's ended, and this marital relationship has to come to an end. After divorce or after li'an, and in li'an the woman cannot become the man's wife once again under any circumstances, which is a situation different from divorce, because once he divorces his wife, he can get her back within a certain time of within a certain span of time, or if she gets married after a certain amount of money to another man, and then this man dies or divorces her, then she can be the wife of her previous husband before. But this is not the case of li'an or in li'an. After a woman is divorced, or after a woman is divorced or after li'an and being separated from her husband, she is not allowed to marry another man except after a certain period, which is called al-iddah. She has to observe what we call al-iddah, and this is the period a woman must observe after the death of her spouse or after a divorce. The time is different in the case of death and divorce, during which she may not marry another man. Then it is the waiting period. She has to wait for some time after her husband divorces her or after her husband dies. The period may be 3 months after a divorce and 4 months and 10 days after the death of a spouse, after the death of the husband. Then in the case of divorce, it's 3 months, and in the case of death, the woman or the deceased has to wait for 4 months and 10 days. Why is that so? But before we say why is that so, how is this calculated? How is this 3 months or 4 months and 10 days calculated? Iddah is calculated on the number of menses. If the woman is at an age in which she has menses, menstruation, or she has menstrual periods, then a woman has to count how many menses. In this case, it's 3 menses for a woman who is divorced, as we said, and in the case of a woman who lost her husband by death, then it's longer than this. For a woman who doesn't have menses, it's 3 lunar months, and in the other case of a woman who lost her husband by death, it is 4 months and 10 days. Iddah was intended or is intended to ensure that the male parent of any offspring produced after the cessation of a nikah would be known, because if a woman is divorced or if her husband dies and she gets married immediately after this without waiting for 3 months in the case of divorce, or 4 months and 10 days in the case of the death of her husband, if she gets married again and then later, a few months later, or she gives birth to a child, then we may not be quite sure whose child this is, because she may be pregnant at the time her husband divorced her or her husband died, and with or without knowing this, and then after she gives birth, this child would be the son or the daughter of her new husband, which is not the actual case. Of course, it's unfair to the second husband, and it's unfair to the child himself. قال الله تعالى: أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم، بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم، وأنكحوا الأيام منكم والصالحين من عبادكم وإمائكم إن يكونوا فقراء يغنهم الله من فضله والله واسع عليم. And marry those among you who are single, that is, a man who has no wife and the woman who has no husband, and also marry the salihin, that's pious, fit and capable ones of you, of your male slaves and maid servants or female slaves. If they are poor, or if they be poor, Allah will enrich them out of His bounty, and Allah is all sufficient for His creatures' needs, all knowing about the state of the people. Verse 32 in Surah 24. Dear viewers, brothers and sisters, as I mentioned at the beginning of this episode, I said we are going to cover the rest of terms related to marriage and divorce, and to start doing fiqhi, which is the adjective from fiqh, terminology or terms. Apparently we don't have enough time for this, but I'm going to mention some of the terms which will be covered in the next episodes dealing with fiqh by the will of Allah. We are going to cover hukm shar'i, fard or farida, mustahab, mubah, makruh, haram, usul al-fiqh, sharia, sources of legislation, which are the Quran, the Sunnah, al-Qiyas, and al-Ijma'. Then, until we meet to deal with as many of these terms as possible, this will be probably covered in 2 episodes. Until then, I leave you in the care of Allah. أستودعكم الله وأترككم في أمنه ورعايته. This is your host, Dr. Ahmad El-Khatib. Until we meet again, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Traveler in this world, I shouldn't feel such loss.